The scent of crushed tomatoes mixed with gasoline hung thick in the mountain air. Harley engines rumbled like a distant storm, but they were close. Too close. Veronica Cooper didn't flinch. She stood rooted behind her farmer's market stall, wiping pulpy fruit from her hands, her calm gaze locking onto the biker, stepping into her space. "Didn't your mama ever tell you not to touch what you can't afford?" she said, voice steady, low. The man smirked, juice still dripping from his thick fingers. "Market tax, sweetheart. You want protection? This is how you pay." She smiled, not kindly. "You just squeezed a $5 heirloom." Behind him, the other storm riders spread like oil through the Eagles Rest Farmers Market. Sledge knocked over a basket of zucchinis. Reaper ghosted through the flower stalls toward the rear. Goliath, nearly Veronica's size, stood menacingly near the main entrance, arms folded. Civilians froze. Mothers held children close. The old regulars didn't breathe. Veronica moved like an oak tree bending in the wind. Slow, supplemental. But her mind mapped everything with cold precision. Exit points, positions, leverage. The weight she carried on her 6 feet 2 inches frame was real, but never clumsy. Yes, she had lived 8 years behind overalls and gentle smiles, never raising her voice. It had worked, until now. "You deaf or just stupid, lady?" Python, the gang's leader, leaned into her space. His breath stank of whiskey and control. His pupils were wrong. Amphetamines. Dangerous. "You've got one chance to step back," she whispered. "Or what? You'll throw another tomato?" She didn't answer, because Reaper's voice rang out, "Boss! Incoming! Cops!" Python spun. Tires crunched gravel as Chief Anderson's cruiser rounded the corner. Perfect timing. Python cursed, barking for his men. They mounted up fast, roaring off in a storm of chrome and fury. Veronica exhaled. Her hand, previously clenched around a concealed switchblade under the table, loosened. She straightened her stall. Ruth Whitaker, white-haired and fuming, shuffled over. "You should press charges, Ronnie. You're not some weak." "I'm fine, Ruth," she said gently. "But they're not going to stop." She watched the road dust settle, her eyes calculating. The storm riders weren't just escalating, they were positioning, marking territory. And now they'd marked her. Back at her truck, her phone buzzed, flip style, outdated on purpose. The message was brief. Package moving. 48 hours. She deleted it, expression unchanged. But inside, Veronica Cooper's old instincts flared. Not just muscle memory, mission reflexes. 8 years ago, she was Commander James Cooper, Tier 1 operator, Delta Force. Fearless, brutal, unquestioned. She had died that day outside Fallujah, not physically, but the person she had been, the one they wouldn't let her be, had no place in uniform. She had stepped out of one war into another, the fight to become herself. Now, they had picked the wrong woman to push. Veronica climbed into her truck, shifted into gear. A storm was coming to Eagles Rest, and she wasn't hiding anymore. The year Veronica left the military, she disappeared, not into shadows, but into herself. It had started with a mirror in a Kabul outpost, sand-covered, cracked at the edges, hanging crooked over a sink. She'd stared at it longer than usual after a mission gone sideways. Blood and sweat on her face. A haunted stare. A stranger. Back then, she was James Cooper, battle-scarred, elite, and utterly alone. 8 years ago, she vanished from all databases, one day after handing in her final report. One day before her reassignment. It was surgical. No announcement, no goodbye. She left the uniform, the medals, and the name. Montana welcomed her in silence. Her grandmother's old land in Eagles Rest was still on file. She drove there with a duffel bag, some cash, and the will to start over. The woman who walked into the county clerk's office 6 months later with a different voice, a different name, and a quiet determination was not James Cooper anymore. "You sure this is what you want, Ms. Cooper?" the clerk had asked, voice hesitant but kind. She nodded. "It's who I've always been." And so began her real life. The farm came back to life with her. Soil softened. Green returned. Locals were skeptical at first. Big woman, new face, quiet type. But her produce was perfect, her prices fair, and her hands always offered help when needed. She became a fixture, Veronica of Stall 9, big lady with the heirloom tomatoes, never missed a market, never raised her voice. But some things never left. The nightmares, the flash angles of movement, her truck's modified suspension, the reinforced barn doors, her hidden gym in the silo, and the training. God, the training. She couldn't stop. Wouldn't. Muscle memory was survival. She trained each morning before dawn. Drills in the woods, marksmanship with buried targets. Even the chickens got used to the rhythm of her breath control exercises. By year 5, she was fully off-grid, and then the contact came. It started with a woman in a blue truck buying rhubarb. She mentioned a mutual friend from Fort Bragg. Her name was Jenny. The next day, Veronica found a folded note inside her seed order. "We haven't forgotten you, and we need you." Jenny's cafe became their meeting point. Casual, clever. Jenny played her role well. Chatty, young, sharp. She baked the best scones in 3 counties and ran ops like a ghost. The weapons pipeline had taken root under their noses. Montana to Mexico. Government munitions gone rogue. Veronica had been watching, documenting, feeding intel quietly back through Jenny. It had been slow, careful, until now. The storm riders were a symptom. The real disease lay deeper, but they had just drawn blood from the wrong vein. That night, she stood under a red moon, eyes scanning the tree line, shotgun resting on her shoulder. "I didn't survive a war to hide from a gang," she whispered. "I didn't become her to vanish again." Tomorrow she'd return to the market like always. Smile, sell cucumbers, count change. But tomorrow she'd also begin dismantling an empire, one lie at a time. The quiet didn't last, not in a town like Eagles Rest, and definitely not for Veronica Cooper. The following morning, the market was more tense than usual. Vendors whispered instead of called. Eyes lingered too long, and while Veronica arranged her produce, she noticed something chilling. 2 new faces, unfamiliar men leaning near the honey stand, not shopping, watching. She kept her movements calm, casual, but her pulse sharpened. Reaper's scouts didn't normally show up out of uniform. These men were different, too clean, not local. Jenny confirmed it minutes later. A to-go cup arrived at Veronica's stall with an extra cinnamon swirl drawn in cream. Their pre-agreed code for surveillance, government or gang, she couldn't yet tell. At noon, Veronica made her way to Jenny's cafe. The bell above the door chimed, and 3 pairs of eyes flicked toward her from inside. All men, all out of place. One had the posture of military, another scanned the windows too often. Jenny played it cool. "You want the usual, hun?" Veronica nodded. "Extra hot." Another signal. They met in the back hallway briefly. "Storm riders are cleaning house," Jenny whispered. "Prospects are pushing deeper into town. Python's gone paranoid. He's importing muscle from outside, maybe private contractors, or worse." "What about the FBI contact?" "Cold. Might have been compromised." "And those 2 at the market today? I think they're testing response time." Veronica felt it settle deep in her chest. The operation wasn't just heating up. It was changing shape. That night, she returned to the farm, locked down her perimeter, her mind spun. If federal channels were compromised, they needed something bigger, louder, public. The next morning, the trap set itself. Sledge returned to the market, alone. He didn't posture, didn't threaten. He bought 3 cucumbers and asked in a low voice, "You got a minute, ma'am?" Veronica blinked. He wasn't armed. He looked tired. "Talk." "They're gonna hit a convoy, west of here. Tomorrow night, military surplus. It's not just ammo anymore. We're talking prototypes, robotics, guidance tech, stuff that doesn't belong in anyone's hands." "Why tell me?" He hesitated. "You used to be one of us, in your own way. You know the line, some of these guys. They're not just bad, they're insane. Python's not running a gang, he's building a militia." Veronica narrowed her eyes. "Why now?" "Because if he pulls this off, it won't stop here. It'll go federal. And you're the only one I've seen who still looks like she could stop it." The moment held. Then she nodded. "Meet me after dark, bring proof." He left. And for the first time in years, Veronica retrieved the trunk buried beneath her barn floor. Inside lay her past, her uniform, her encrypted sat phone, and her custom sidearm. It was time to start making noise. Night fell like a curtain, thick and absolute. Veronica's boots crunched over gravel as she made her way to the edge of her property. Sledge waited there, half-shadowed under the pine trees, holding a flash drive like it was burning his fingers. "Everything's on here," he muttered, handing it over. "Convoy manifests, GPS routes, even a partial buyer list. Some of these names, they're not local, not even national." Veronica didn't ask how he got it. She uploaded the data through her sat phone's secure channel. The signal pinged 3 satellites before reaching its destination. She had no idea who still monitored that dead channel, but if anyone in the old networks was listening, they'd get the message. She turned to Sledge. "What's your angle in this?" "I don't want to kill Americans for money," he said simply. "Not like this." They parted without words. Veronica returned to her barn and began planning. By morning, the market buzzed with a nervous energy. Jenny gave her a look, wordless but clear. The files were moving. People higher up were finally paying attention. Now came the most dangerous part. At 3:14 p.m., Veronica noticed 2 of the new faces again, circling the market. Only this time, they weren't watching. They were guiding, herding people slowly into a central area. Then she saw Python. He strolled in with calm menace, flanked by Goliath and Reaper. No Sledge this time. Veronica's body tensed. She moved to intercept, smiling faintly as if greeting old customers. "Afternoon, boys." Python didn't smirk. He stared. "You've been busy." "Selling tomatoes. You want some?" He nodded to Reaper. In one motion, Reaper swept a box off her table. Tomatoes spilled across the pavement. "We're past games, Veronica," Python said. "You had your fun. But now, we're taking the market. Today. Permanent. Anyone who resists gets reminded who runs this town." Her voice remained even. "You're not walking out of here with a single stall." Goliath cracked his knuckles. "You think you scare me?" she said quietly. "I train men like you. I buried friends braver than you. And if you take one more step, I'll remind you why you never saw me coming." Tension snapped. Python lunged, but he wasn't fast enough. Veronica's hand struck his wrist, twisting his arm backward. He screamed as she drove him into the side of her truck. Goliath charged, too slow. She spun, kicked low, and dropped him with a sweep. Reaper reached for something inside his jacket. She drew her sidearm. "Don't!" The crowd froze. Jenny stepped out of her cafe, holding her phone high. "Live feed," she called. "Streaming now. FBI, DOJ, hell, maybe even CNN." The moment held like a live wire. Then Reaper raised his hands and backed away. Veronica's voice rang out. "This market is ours, and this town, we protect our own." Python groaned, still pinned, blood trickling from his temple. Police sirens wailed in the distance, closer than usual. Veronica holstered her weapon. "I suggest you leave," she said, "before the law and the people decide to take you apart." The storm riders fled. But the war wasn't over. The convoy was still moving, and now the real players were watching. The convoy rolled through the canyon roads like a steel serpent, its unmarked trucks humming with deadly cargo. 30 miles outside Eagle's Rest, the real war began. Veronica crouched behind a ridgeline, night vision goggles pressed to her face. She counted 7 vehicles, 2 armed escorts, and 1 command SUV. The data from Sledge had been accurate. Even the timing, and thanks to Jenny's anonymous leak, federal eyes were watching from above. But Veronica didn't wait for backup. She moved like wind through the pines, silent and swift. A tripwire across the narrow pass, the sabotaged bridge pylon. She didn't need to fight every man, just collapse their plan. At 1:03 a.m., the lead escort hit the wire. Tires blew, chassis scraped rock. The truck behind swerved and collided. Horns blared. Confusion reigned. Veronica struck. She dropped from the trees like a phantom, taking out the rear guards first. Non-lethal shots. Precision. Then she advanced toward the SUV, where Python, bruised and raging, screamed orders. He spotted her. "You!" She aimed at his knee. "Me!" One round ended the shouting. Another disabled the SUV's engine. Reaper tried to flank her, but Sledge appeared from the ridge, rifle trained. "Thought I'd return the favor," he said. They moved as one. By 1:16 a.m., the convoy was immobilized, the weapons secured. The air above thrummed with the sound of incoming rotors. Blackhawks, FBI, not local. Agents descended, weapons raised, only to pause at the sight of Veronica, calm, composed, gun lowered, standing amid the aftermath. An older agent approached, gray at the temples, badge displayed. He scanned the scene, then looked at her. "Commander Cooper?" She didn't flinch. "Not anymore." He nodded slowly. "Well, whoever you are now, you just saved lives and helped us crack a trafficking ring 5 years in the making." Veronica stepped back, letting them move in. She wasn't here for medals. By dawn, it was over. Eagle's Rest woke to news trucks, federal agents, and the story of a violent gang's collapse. But the name most whispered wasn't Python or Reaper. It was Veronica Cooper. Jenny poured her coffee extra strong that morning. "You gonna vanish again?" Veronica sipped. "Not this time. People know now who you are, what you did." She nodded. "Then maybe it's time they learned what she can build, too." The farm needed replanting, the market, repair, and the town. Its soul stitched back together. But Veronica was home, and this time she was finally free.